Okay, so now on to the George Soros article from Zero Hedge. It is absolutely amazing how far this guy's tentacles go. He can spend tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars funding right wing groups, left wing groups, politicians, Hillary Clinton. Hey, listen, can you come over here to this country? I'm got a little problem with. Can you bring the whole, the State Department level? Can you take care of this for me? No problem, George. I got you. You always donate to the Clinton Foundation. You've given us millions. No problem. And I just read today, half of all meetings that took place with Hillary Clinton while she was in the State Department, half of all meetings were from people who gave pretty big dollars via fundraising or fundraiser, whatever nonsense, or simply contributions, whatever, to the Clinton Foundation. But nobody, and I mean nobody, outdoes George Soros. George Soros emerges as mastermind behind a plan to enlarge electorate by at least 10 million voters in the U.S. Why would George Soros want so many more people voting? And specifically, who are you trying to get out there to vote, Mr. Soros? Let's take a look. In case you don't know, he is the man responsible for bringing in these quote-unquote refugees, immigrants, into the EU. And I'm sure you've been hearing about those stories. Ever wonder who's behind all the lawsuits filed to overturn state voter ID laws? Those lawsuits are very expensive. After all, they rack up at thousands of billable hours from several high and very high-end law firms. Well, courtesy of the 2,500 documents recently released by DC Leaks, we now know that George Soros is funding the legal fees as part of his stated goal to enlarge the U.S. electorate by at least 10 million voters by the year 2018. The specifics of the plan were discussed at the May 2014 board meeting of the Open Society Foundations, which is a liberal grant-making group founded by yours truly, George Soros. The full 222-page presentation from the board meeting can be found at the end of this post. The Society's first goal under its proposed strategic framework 2015 to 2018 was to strengthen the quality of American democracy through greater inclusion, participation, and accountability. At face value, that sounds okay. Strengthen the quality of American democracy through greater inclusion, participation, and accountability. Or is that the same kind of thing where Obama says this will be the most transparent administration ever? When the cameras were off on that one, he was rolling on the floor laughing. Stop. I could barely keep a straight face. That's why you guys chose me to be the commander-in-chief, because I can pull it off. Gotcha. So under the goal, the societies, that's the Open Society Foundation's, top objective was to enlarge the U.S. electorate by at least 10 million voters through modernization of voter registration systems and through expanded constitutional/legislative protections. And I'll translate that for you without even reading the rest of this article. We need illegals, felons, everybody we can count on to be able to vote. Because they'll know to vote for the Democrats, the liberal Democrats, because we're going to let them know this guy or this girl or whoever is running right now for office, they allowed you to get out and vote. They restored your voting rights. They helped you. Oh, then I need to vote for them. That's what that line meant. As context for their mission to expand the electorate, the Open Society warned that American democracy is threatened by, among other things, undue influence of wealthy interests. They actually said that. Isn't it ironic that the organization funded by George Soros would be worried about the undue influence of wealthy interests on the American political system, considering that's all he does? American democracy is threatened. Broad ideological and geographic polarization is reflected in a decline in fact-based discourse, in deeply divided federal and state government institutions, fueled by misguided Supreme Court decisions. Our public life and politics have been flooded by the undue influence of wealthy interests acting for their own benefit, even as voting by historically marginalized constituencies is challenged. The Open Society Board presentation goes on to enumerate 4 specific tactics that would be utilized to expand the electorate. The wording of the tactics is masterful, effectively painting anyone who might support election integrity laws as a bigots looking to erect barriers. Voter registration as a means to suppress or deny certain segments of the population the right to vote. More fully equip those with less voice, including African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, APIA communities, the Middle Eastern, Arab, South Asian, and Muslim communities to effectively influence public policy issues, including those concerning the rule of law, public access to information and voting, internet regulation, and criminal justice. Interesting. Number 2, broaden the electorate by lowering barriers to voter registration through the various forms of modernization and increased ballot access, while sustaining and expanding the franchise by establishing strong protections against vote suppression, denial, and dilution. Number 3, give more equal weight to the speech of all who influence elections and policymaking by reducing the undue influence of the few wealthy interests influencing politics and policy, including ongoing support for anchors and through developing and seeding alternative legal theories that support regulation of political spending in elections. And finally, improve effectiveness and participatory capacity of municipal governments, especially in places experiencing demographic shifts or without significant civic capacity. And again, as I read some of that, that kind of sounds okay. But then when you realize who the man is and his agendas and what they've always been, you can clearly see why they write him a certain way, where some of it is blatant, it doesn't sound good, and then others is like, well, it doesn't sound too bad. It sounds like there might be a good reasoning behind it until you see who it is. Right? If it was Hitler, still alive, still the man we know from history, and he was saying any of this, you'd be able to see right through it. Why? Because you know the man. You know his history. A lot of people don't understand. Well, open borders, open society foundation. Who is that? What is that? I've heard of it. I've never really. Okay, it was created, pretty much run by George Soros. Oh, I've been hearing that guy's name a lot lately. Yeah, and have you been hearing good about the name or bad about the name? Bad. Okay, good. Because that'll let you know anything coming from his mouth, no matter how good it sounds, is not what it seems. So, in fact, according to the Washington Free Beacon, Soros first started challenging voter ID laws in 2014 and subsequently was quoted publicly as saying, "We hope to see these unfair laws, which often disproportionately affect the most vulnerable in our society, repealed." Soros also publicly vowed to spend at least $5 million on the effort in 2015. Can I ask one simple question? Do you think there's any problem with voter ID, as in, show me your identification so I know you're a citizen, and as a matter of fact, you're a citizen within the certain state you're in, but more importantly, citizen of the country? Is there any problem with that? Or People who have no IDs whatsoever should be allowed to just come in and vote. Exactly. In fact, the first lawsuit challenging voter ID laws came in Ohio in 2014, just days before the Open Society Board meeting. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, even though they had to be replaced later in the case due to a state investigation alleging they had forged signatures and registered dead people to vote. Oops. So as you can see, we've got one guy who's got more money than God. He can drop 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million. And it would be like me dropping these little example, couple ounces and some of these silver quarters from 64 and before I have sitting here. In other words, if I lost that today, how would that affect my financial livelihood? It wouldn't affect me at all. Nothing would change at all. I would not even miss it. I would miss it because I love silver. But aside from that, I wouldn't miss it. It wouldn't hurt. Same thing with this guy. When you have people who are allowed to be that filthy rich, it always, always, always comes back. Take, for example, Bill Gates. Bill Gates is now one of these club members, off doing the whole vaccine thing and the global warming crap. Old Bill Gates. And you say to yourself, he was just an average kid in his garage, formed Microsoft, had the first operating system, and became filthy rich almost immediately. But that's like the fantastic American dream. Hey, wouldn't that be great for that to happen? Hey, old Snip 4, man, he did something. He started his remote control PC company, and man, people were flooding in. They were tired of paying the high prices for LogMeIn and TeamViewer, and man, the guy did great. I used to watch him on YouTube. He still does videos today. Man, the guy's a multi-hundred-something millionaire. Good for him. I wouldn't take that money and let me pay off Hillary Clinton, let me pay off Donald Trump, who's the president, State Department. I want to get in there, and I want you guys to make sure every government agency in the whole country buys my software. Yeah, but Mr. JSnip4, you got a good piece of software, but are you the best programmer in the whole world? Like, how secure is this to be putting on a freaking government system? Oh, it's pretty secure. I wrote it myself, but again, you owe me a favor. We're not even going to have that discussion. You got it. Next thing I know, I give you just a few million, 5 or 10 million campaign contribution, Clinton Foundation. Here you go. And that just made me 100 to 200 million in government contracts that I know they're all going to use JSnip4 software now. Nothing wrong with that. What? I didn't do anything. Sir, did you give any money to the campaign contributions or anything to the such and such foundation? That's none of your business. Sir, we have records that show your software company gave. Well, but I didn't. And I allow my employees to, I don't check everything they do. So that some of my upper echelon of employees may have given the foundation some donation money. Right. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. But the point being, and I remember talking about the cycles of government. I've done at least 3 videos repeating pretty much what I did every time because it's a good video. It's very informative about these old, ancient, not necessarily ancient, but old philosophers, Greek philosophers, people you would recognize the name of, where they would talk about these different cycles of government and how each of these has a subcycle. And democracy is one of the degenerate subcycles or something like that of the whole cycle. Interesting. And they go on to talk about how politicians become bought and paid for. They no longer do the will of the people, and the cycle starts to turn into the next thing. This one goes to that one goes to that. That one ends in anarchy. Then the next one starts where someone comes up, rising star. I'll fix everything. Okay, let's make that guy the king. We can't allow it to be the way it was because they're so infested with congressmen, or in Rome, the Senate. They'll just overrule everything he does, so we can't allow that. We're going back to kingship, rule by a single person. He's going to fix everything, and he does. Life is good for a while. His kids take over. got to pass the torch down to the kids. The kids, they were so young when all this crap happened, they don't really know it was even happening. All they know now is I've got power, and this is cool, and I want to use it. And then you start the degenerational kind of society going downhill, favors for this class, that class, no one else. Next up, I'll pass it down to my son, and they certainly didn't remember anything. They weren't even born yet. The grandkids, now they become the king. People start to realize you guys are not doing this. This is not what your great-grandfather or your, did. Time to overthrow the king. No, overthrow me. I'll be fair. Let's create a group body of government officials. You may know this as democracy, a Senate or Congress, and we will all rule. Everyone will have power, so you will see we, can't rule everything. Well, okay, all right, okay, we won't revolt, then we won't revolt. And then they realize, oh, we have power. We got to share this power. I like this power. People are giving me money and donations and campaign contributions. This is great. Which leads to, I need to get paid off. You need something? You need some money? Give it to me. Give me a campaign contribution. You got all the contracts, no problem. Like the Obamacare website. I'm going to end this video on that one. Obama, how much did the Obamacare website cost? Officially, this is going to blow your mind if you didn't know this already. I want you to think about this. This is just a website. And I'm sure there's going to be needed a lot of servers, some database servers, redundancy, what they call federation, where they talk to each other. It just, basic terms, redundancy and high availability. So that when they're flooded with a lot of requests, people signing up, it handles it with ease. Officially, the Department of Health and Human Services says the website cost $834 million. That's the number offered by then HHS Secretary Designate Sylvia Matthews Burwell at a Senate hearing May 8th, 2014. There were people saying we could have built this for maybe $1 million, had it all taken care of. $1 million, that's it. So are you telling me that they spent 834 times the amount it should have cost? Yes. Why? Because of what I just said. Club members give one of our college buddy, the college friend of the Obamas, they're going to build the website. We want them. Remember, let's not forget about George Bush. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. George Bush, whose company got the contracts in Iraq? No bid. Remember that one? No bid contracts. In other words, we don't want the cheapest person or reliable person. We want Dick Cheney's old company, Halliburton. That's who gets the contract. No bids. We got to go with this. And boy, oh boy, did Halliburton charge the living shit out of us taxpayers. No bid contract. Isn't that lovely? Anyways, hope you've enjoyed being pissed off for your morning. But as long as you're pissed off and informed, educated, then I know I'm doing my job. Take care.